You've been told to keep your options open, to try a little of everything, to never close any doors. But here's what nobody mentions. The person who chases 2 rabbits catches neither. And the person who chases 20, they starve. I want to talk with you tonight about one of the most dangerous ideas circulating in our modern world, an idea that sounds reasonable, even wise, but leads more people to failure than perhaps any other single belief. It's the idea that you should try everything. Keep your options open. Sample every opportunity. Never commit too deeply to any one path, because you might miss out on something better. Now, on the surface, this sounds like good advice, doesn't it? After all, how can you know what you're capable of unless you explore? How can you discover your true calling unless you experiment? But here's the truth, and it's a truth that hasn't changed since the beginning of time. Trying everything is the surest path to mastering nothing. Let me explain. There's a law as dependable as the law of gravity, and I call it the law of directed energy. It states simply this: energy dispersed accomplishes little, energy concentrated accomplishes much. Think of the sun. Its rays spread across the earth give us warmth and light. But take those same rays, concentrate them through a magnifying glass, and they can start a fire. Same energy. Different results. The difference. Focus. Your life operates on the same principle. When you try everything, when you dabble in this career and that hobby, when you start this project on Monday and abandon it for another by Friday, you're spreading your energy so thin that nothing catches fire. You're warm, perhaps, but you never burn bright enough to illuminate your own path, let alone light the way for others. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But Earl, I don't want to limit myself. I don't want to close doors. What if I choose wrong? That's the fear talking. And it's a fear our modern world has amplified to deafening levels. We're told we can be anything, do anything, have anything all at once. But that's not wisdom. That's confusion dressed up as freedom. The truth is, you must close doors. You must say no to the good so you can say yes to the greats. Because here's what happens when you refuse to choose life chooses for you. And life's choices are rarely the ones that lead to excellence. I've studied successful people for decades, and I've never met a truly successful person who tried everything. Not one. Every person who has achieved something worthwhile has done so by doing one thing. They chose a direction and stayed with it long enough for compound interest to work its magic. And that's the key word: compound interest. We usually think of compound interest in financial terms, the way money grows when interest earns interest. But the same principle applies to your skills, your knowledge, your relationships, your reputation. When you focus on one thing, when you show up day after day, year after year, and do the work, something remarkable happens. You don't just get a little better each day. You get exponentially better. Your knowledge compounds. Your skill compounds. Your network compounds. And one day, you wake up and realize you've become someone of value in your field. But this only works if you stay the course. Every time you abandon one pursuit for another, you reset the clock. You go back to zero. You throw away all that compounding interest and start over as a beginner. The person who tries everything spends their entire life being a beginner. And beginners, no matter how enthusiastic, rarely create anything of lasting value. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying you shouldn't explore when you're young. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn broadly or develop varied interests. What I'm saying is this: there comes a time when exploration must give way to commitment. There comes a time when you must choose your one thing and give it everything you have. And here's how you'll know when that time has come: when the cost of not choosing becomes greater than the fear of choosing wrong. I want to share with you the central truth of tonight's message, and I want you to remember it. The person who aims at nothing hits it with remarkable accuracy. But the person who aims at one thing, and only that thing, transforms themselves into a force of nature. That's the choice before you. Not between trying everything or trying nothing, but between scattering yourself across 100 targets or becoming a force of nature in one arena that matters. So how do you do this? How do you resist the siren call of infinite options and commit to the focused path? First, you must choose. Not perfectly, but decisively. Pick the one thing that, if you became excellent at it, would make everything else in your life easier or unnecessary. Don't agonize over whether it's the perfect choice. There is no perfect choice. There's only the choice you make and the commitment you bring to it. Second, you must subtract before you add. Look at your life right now, all the projects, hobbies, side hustles, and commitments. Ask yourself honestly which of these are moving me toward my goal and which are just making me feel busy. Then have the courage to cut away everything that doesn't serve your singular purpose. This is the discipline of subtraction, and it's far more important than any discipline of addition. Third, you must measure your progress not in days, but in years. Our culture has conditioned us to expect immediate results. We want success by Friday, but mastery doesn't work that way. Commit to your path for at least 5 years before you even think about evaluating whether it's working. 5 years of focused effort will take you further than 50 years of scattered attempts. Fourth, you must develop what I call selective ignorance. You must become comfortable with not knowing what's happening in areas outside your focus. You must be willing to miss opportunities that don't align with your goal. This isn't easy in our age of endless information and constant connectivity, but it's essential. The successful person isn't the one who knows about everything. It's the one who knows everything about something. And finally, you must remember this: you choosing one thing doesn't make you narrow. It makes you deep. And depth, my friends, is where all true value is created. The world doesn't need more people who know a little about everything. It needs more people who know a lot about something, who have gone deep enough to bring back wisdom that others can use. Think about it this way. When you have a serious problem, a legal issue, a health crisis, a financial disaster, do you seek out someone who dabbles in many things? Or do you seek out the specialist, the person who has devoted their life to solving exactly your type of problem? You seek the specialist, we all do, because we know instinctively that focused expertise is what solves difficult problems. So why would you live your life any differently? Why would you try to be a generalist in a world that rewards specialists? Now, I want to address one more thing before we close tonight. Some of you might be thinking, "But Earl, I've already tried many things. I've scattered my energy for years. Is it too late for me?" No, it's never too late. The best time to choose your path was 10 years ago. The second best time is today, right now. This moment. You can't get back the years you spent unfocused. None of us can. But you can decide, here and now, that from this day forward you will be a person of singular purpose. You will choose your one thing, and you will pursue it with everything you have. And when you do, when you finally stop trying everything and start mastering something, you'll discover something wonderful. You'll discover that focus doesn't limit you. It liberates you. It frees you from the exhausting tyranny of infinite choice and gives you something far more valuable: the power to create something that matters. The law of directed energy. I want to share something with you tonight that might make you uncomfortable at first. In fact, I hope it does, because sometimes discomfort is the only thing that wakes us up from the sleepwalk we call our daily routine. You've been working hard. I know you have. You're busy from the moment you wake up until the moment your head hits the pillow. Your calendar is full. Your to-do list is endless. You're juggling projects at work, side ventures on the weekend, learning new skills online, exploring opportunities, networking, staying visible, keeping up. And yet, you're not getting anywhere, are you? Oh, you're moving. There's plenty of motion. But if you're honest with yourself, truly honest, you'll admit that all this motion isn't taking you anywhere meaningful. You're like a man rowing a boat with one oar in the water and the other in the air. Lots of effort. Lots of sweat. But you're just going in circles. Now, before you turn this off or tell yourself, "I don't understand your situation," I want you to stay with me for just a moment. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't criticism. It's liberation. Here's what's really happening. You've been operating under a false belief, a belief so common in our modern world that almost nobody questions it. The belief is this: that more activity equals more results. That if you just do more, try more, pursue more opportunities simultaneously, you'll eventually hit on something that works. But that's not how the universe operates. And it's certainly not how human achievement works. Let me tell you about a principle that's as old as nature itself. When you take a river and split it into a dozen streams, what happens? Each stream becomes weaker. Some dry up entirely. But when you take that same river and direct all its water through a single channel, it carves canyons through solid rock. Your energy, your time, your attention, your creative power works exactly the same way. It's not about how much energy you have. We all have roughly the same amount in a given day. It's about how you direct it. Think about the sun for a moment. The same sunlight that gently warms your face can, when focused through a simple piece of glass, start a fire. The same light, the same energy. But concentrated, it becomes something else entirely, a force capable of transformation. You have that same choice with your life energy every single day. When you concentrate your efforts, when you take all that enthusiasm, all that ambition, all that drive, and point it in one clear direction, something remarkable happens. Not immediately, not overnight, but inevitably. Your focused energy begins to compound. Each day's work builds on the previous day's. Knowledge accumulates, skills deepen, momentum builds, and gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, you stop being someone who's busy and become someone who's effective. But here's the beautiful part, and this is what I want you to really understand. The moment you choose to focus, the moment you decide to direct all your energy toward one worthy goal, instead of scattering it across many, you don't lose anything. You gain everything. You gain clarity because you finally know what matters. You gain progress because your efforts accumulate instead of canceling each other out. You gain peace because you're no longer torn between competing priorities. And you gain power, real power, the power that comes from becoming deeply skilled at something that matters. This is the law of directed energy, and it's been working since the beginning of time, whether you believe in it or not. The only question is, will you work with it or against it? The illusion of infinite options. Tonight I want to talk about something that's quietly stealing your future. And the worst part, you've been told it's actually helping you. You're keeping your options open, aren't you? That's what smart people do, you've been told. Don't commit too deeply. Don't burn bridges. Don't close any doors. After all, what if something better comes along? What if you make the wrong choice? What if you miss out on the perfect opportunity because you tied yourself down to something less than perfect? So you wait. You explore. You sample this and taste that. You keep one foot in this career and another in that side business. You're learning this skill while dabbling in that hobby. You're dating but not committing. Working but not investing yourself fully. Building but never finishing. And you tell yourself this is wisdom. This is being strategic. This is staying flexible in an unpredictable world. But let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. When was the last time keeping your options open actually led you somewhere? When did all this flexibility produce something real, something substantial, something you could point to and say, I built that? I'll wait while you think. The silence is telling, isn't it? Now, here's what nobody wants to admit, because it sounds too simple, too old-fashioned, too limiting for our modern sensibilities. But it's true nonetheless, and you need to hear it. Infinite options don't create freedom. They create paralysis. They create a permanent state of maybe someday, where you're always on the verge of something but never actually arriving anywhere. You become like a person standing in front of 1,000 open doors, so overwhelmed by choice that you can't walk through any of them. So you just stand there, proud of how many options you have, while your life quietly slips away. The great irony, and this is where most people get it backwards, is that true freedom doesn't come from having every option available. It comes from choosing one option and mastering it so thoroughly that you create opportunities others can't even see. Think about it this way. A person who speaks 10 languages poorly is less free than a person who speaks 2 languages fluently. The dabbler can barely order food in 10 countries. The master can negotiate, create, build relationships, and open doors in 2. Who has more real options? Who has more real freedom? The master does. Every single time. This is the truth about options that our culture doesn't want you to understand. You don't need infinite options. You need one option that you've developed to such a high level that it gives you leverage in the world. You need one skill so valuable that people seek you out. One area of expertise so deep that you can write your own ticket. But you can't develop that kind of mastery while keeping all your options open. You can't become exceptional at something while you're still shopping around for something better. Mastery demands commitment. It demands that you close doors. It demands that you say, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it whether it's the perfect choice or not, because the committed choice becomes the right choice through the sheer force of dedication. And here's the beautiful part that nobody tells you about commitment. The moment you truly choose, the moment you stop keeping your options open and actually commit to one path, a weight lifts. The paralysis disappears. The anxiety about missing out fades, because you're no longer torn between 1,000 possibilities. You know where you're going, you know what you're building, and you can finally pour all of yourself into it. That's when your real life begins, not when you have the most options, but when you choose one and make it magnificent. The question is, are you ready to choose? Or will you spend another year, another decade, standing in front of 1,000 open doors, going nowhere? The compounding power of focus. Let me tell you about the saddest thing I see in people today. It's not failure. Failure is temporary. It's not lack of talent. Talent is overrated anyway. It's not even lack of opportunity, because opportunities are everywhere for those who can recognize them. No, the saddest thing I see is people who work hard every single day and have nothing to show for it 5 years later. 10 years later. 20 years later. They're busy. They're trying. They're putting in the hours. But they're no further ahead than when they started. Same income. Same problems. Same frustrations. Different year on the calendar, but the same life on repeat. And the worst part, they don't understand why. They look around at others who seem to be accelerating past them, people who started at the same place, maybe even with less talent, and they're baffled. I work just as hard, they think. I'm just as smart. I try just as many things. So why am I still stuck? If that's you, I need you to listen carefully to what I'm about to say, because the answer isn't complicated, but it might be painful to hear. You're stuck because you keep starting over. Not intentionally, perhaps. But every time you jump to a new project, a new idea, a new direction before the last one has had time to mature, you reset the most powerful force in the universe, compound growth. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. You know how money works in a savings account. You put in $100. It earns interest. But here's the magic: next month, you don't just earn interest on your $100. You earn interest on your $100 plus last month's interest. Month after month, year after year. Your money doesn't just grow, it grows on top of its own growth. Small amounts become substantial. Substantial amounts become significant. And significant amounts become life-changing. All because you left it alone long enough for the compounding to work. Your skills work exactly the same way. Your knowledge works this way. Your reputation works this way. Everything valuable in your life compounds, but only if you stay with it. When you focus on one thing for a full year, you don't just get 12 months better. You get exponentially better. Because month 2 builds on month 1. Month 6 builds on all the months before it. By month 12, you're not just 12 times better than when you started, you might be 50 times better, 100 times better. Because every layer of learning multiplies the layers beneath it. But here's what kills most people's progress. They don't stay long enough to see the compounding begin. They work on something for 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year. They see linear progress, a little better each day, and they think, this is too slow. At this rate, it'll take forever. So they quit and start something else, hoping for faster results. And what happens? They start the compound growth curve all over again from zero. And 3 months into the new thing, 6 months into the new thing, they have the same thought. This is too slow. So they start over again, and again, and again. They spend their entire lives in the early stages of compound growth, never staying long enough to reach the exponential part where the real magic happens. But the person who chooses one direction and stays with it, they suffer through the same slow beginning, the same doubts, the same temptation to quit. But they don't. They keep showing up, day after day, year after year. And then something remarkable happens. Around year 3, year 4, year 5, the compounding accelerates. Their growth becomes visible. Opportunities appear. Doors open. People notice. And suddenly they're not just a little bit ahead. They're so far ahead that others can't even see how they got there. That's the power of compounding. That's what focus gives you that scattered effort never can. So here's what you need to understand: every day you stay focused on your one thing. You're not just making progress. You're earning interest on all the progress you've already made. Every day you scatter your attention. You're not just slowing down. You're throwing away all that accumulated interest and starting from scratch. The choice is yours. But make no mistake, it is a choice. And the choice you make today will determine whether you're still stuck in the same place 5 years from now, or whether you've become someone remarkable. Choose wisely. The cost of constant beginning. There's a peculiar kind of exhaustion that comes from never finishing anything. You know it well, don't you? It's different from the tiredness that comes from hard work. That kind of tired feels good. It's the fatigue of accomplishment, of a job well done. But this other kind, it's the weariness that settles into your bones when you look back at the trail of abandoned projects, half-learned skills, and discarded ambitions stretching out behind you like a graveyard of good intentions. You started strong every time. I know you did. There was excitement. There was possibility. You could see it clearly, this new venture, this new path, this new version of yourself. You told people about it. Maybe you bought the equipment, enrolled in the course, set up the website, read the first 3 chapters of the book. You were all in. This time was going to be different. But somewhere along the way, 3 weeks in, 3 months in, the excitement faded. The obstacles appeared, the progress slowed, and then you saw it something shinier, something newer, something that looked easier or more promising or more aligned with who you really are. So you set down what you were building and reached for this new thing, and the cycle began again. Now you're tired, deeply tired, and you're starting to wonder if maybe you're just not the kind of person who finishes things. Maybe you don't have what it takes. Maybe success just isn't in the cards for you. But before you accept that story about yourself, I want you to consider something else, something you probably haven't thought about. Every time you start something new, you pay a price. And I'm not talking about the money you spend on courses or equipment, though that adds up quickly enough. I'm talking about something far more valuable. I'm talking about the momentum you had to abandon, the knowledge you'd started to accumulate, the relationships you were beginning to build, the reputation you were starting to earn, the muscle memory you were developing, all of it gone, thrown away the moment you chase the next bright object. You see, the beginning of anything is expensive. It's when you're least efficient, least skilled, least connected. You're learning the basics, making beginner mistakes, figuring out who to trust and what works. Every beginner pays these same startup costs. It's part of the journey, the price of admission. But here's what separates the professional from the amateur. The professional pays these costs once. The amateur pays them over and over and over again. Think about a stonecutter hammering at a rock. He strikes it 100 times with no visible change. No crack appears. No chip falls away. Nothing. Then on the 101st strike, the rock splits in 2. Did that final blow break the rock? Of course not. It was all the strikes before it. But only the person who stayed, the person who kept striking that same rock, gets to see it split. You've been striking 100 different rocks. 1 blow here, 20 blows there, 50 somewhere else. And you wonder why nothing breaks open for you. You wonder why others seem to have breakthroughs while you're still stuck. The answer is simple: they kept striking the same rock. You kept switching rocks. Every skill has a learning curve. Every business has a ramp-up period. Every relationship takes time to deepen. Every reputation takes years to build. And none of it survives constant restarting. But here's the good news, and I really want you to hear this: the moment you stop beginning and start continuing, everything changes. That accumulated knowledge you thought was going to waste, it starts compounding. Those relationships you thought weren't developing fast enough, they deepen. That skill you thought you were learning too slowly, it suddenly accelerates because you're past the beginner phase. All of it, all the progress you've been throwing away by constantly starting over, it's still available to you. But only if you choose one thing and see it through. Only if you resist the siren call of the new and honor the commitment you made to yourself when you started. You're not lacking talent. You're not lacking intelligence. You're not even lacking opportunity. You're lacking the one thing that turns all those other things into achievement, the willingness to finish what you started. The question is, will today be the day you stop being a professional beginner and become an amateur finisher? Because I'll tell you something, an amateur who finishes beats a professional who quits every single time. Choose your rock and keep striking. The discipline of subtraction. Your life is full. I know it is. Your calendar is packed with commitments. Your desk is covered with projects. Your mind is racing with ideas, opportunities, obligations. You're doing so much. You're involved in so many things. You're keeping so many plates spinning in the air. And you're proud of that, aren't you? Because busy means important. Busy means successful. Busy means you're making things happen. But let me ask you something that might disturb you. What if all this fullness is actually emptiness in disguise? What if all these things you're doing are the very things preventing you from doing the one thing that matters? You keep adding to your life new goals, new projects, new commitments, new responsibilities. You attend this networking event and that seminar. You say yes to this opportunity and that favor. You start another side venture while the last three are still unfinished. You're building a life of more, because that's what ambitious people do, right? They add, they expand, they grow. But here's what's really happening, and you feel it even if you won't admit it. You're drowning. Not in failure, in options. Not in emptiness, in fullness. You're so busy doing everything that you're accomplishing nothing of real significance. And deep down, in the quiet moments you try to avoid, you know it. You know that all this activity is just sophisticated procrastination. You're hiding behind business to avoid the hard truth that none of it is taking you where you really want to go. So you add more. Because if this much activity isn't working, surely more will, right? Now, I want you to stop for a moment and consider something that goes against everything our culture teaches us about success. What if the path forward isn't about adding anything at all? What if it's about taking away? What if greatness isn't built by piling more onto your life, but by removing everything that doesn't belong there? Think about Michelangelo standing before a block of marble. He didn't create David by adding clay to the stone. He created it by removing everything that wasn't David. He chipped away the excess. He subtracted. And what remained was a masterpiece. Your life works the same way. Right now, your masterpiece is trapped inside a block of business. Inside all those commitments and projects and obligations and distractions, there's something magnificent waiting to emerge. But it can't emerge while it's still buried under everything else. You have to chip away. You have to subtract. This is what I call the discipline of subtraction, and it's the hardest discipline you'll ever practice. Because subtraction feels like loss. It feels like giving up. It feels like failure. When you remove something from your life, when you quit that committee, drop that project, stop attending that meeting, it feels like you're becoming less smaller, less ambitious, less capable. But that's the illusion talking. That's your ego confusing quantity with quality, business with productivity, fullness with meaning. The truth is exactly the opposite. Every time you remove something that doesn't serve your highest purpose, you don't become less. You become more focused, more effective, more powerful, because you're concentrating all that energy that was scattered across 10 things onto the one thing that actually matters. Look at any great achievement in history, any masterpiece, any breakthrough, any life well lived, and you'll find this same pattern. Someone had the courage to say no to almost everything so they could say yes to the one thing that mattered. They subtracted ruthlessly. They cut away the good to make room for the great. They understood that you can't do everything, so you'd better make sure you're doing the right thing. Here's what I want you to understand: the discipline of subtraction isn't about doing less because you're lazy or unmotivated. It's about doing less because you're focused and intentional. It's about having the wisdom to recognize that 10 mediocre efforts produce far less value than one extraordinary effort. It's about understanding that your time, your energy, your attention, these are finite resources, and every yes to something trivial is a no to something significant. So what do you need to remove from your life? What plates do you need to stop spinning? What commitments do you need to release? What projects do you need to abandon? What obligations do you need to politely decline? I know it's frightening to let go. I know it feels like you're limiting yourself. But I promise you this: the moment you start subtracting, the moment you clear away everything that isn't essential to your one great purpose, you'll feel something you haven't felt in years. You'll feel space. You'll feel clarity. You'll feel freedom. And for the first time in a long time, you'll be able to see your path clearly. Greatness isn't built by addition. It's carved out by subtraction. The question is, are you brave enough to pick up the chisel? So here's what I want you to do tonight, before you go to sleep. Take out a piece of paper and write down, in one sentence, the single thing you will commit to for the next 5 years. Not 5 things, one thing. The thing that, if you became extraordinary at it, would change your life. Then tomorrow morning I want you to take the first step. Not a big step, not a dramatic gesture. Just the first small, concrete action toward becoming who you're capable of becoming. And then the next day, take the second step. And the day after that, the third. Do this every day for 5 years, And I promise you, you won't recognize the person you've become. You'll have transformed yourself from someone who tries everything into someone who has mastered something. And that, my friends, makes all the difference.